So, using Google Docs is putting our documents online so that we can always access things when we want to. And of course, one really important thing is being able to see, were there any changes? Has something happened? Like, what happens if I were to delete the entire document? Can I recover that? So that's one of the main reasons why we like version control. And the same thing applies to programming. We want to incrementally build up projects, especially if they're big, especially if they're collaborative. We want to build them up slowly, and if something breaks, well, we can go back and look at our history. How many changes have we made? We can go back to something that actually worked and find out if there's an issue and start from there rather than breaking your code and then nothing works. So one of the main tools that we're going to use for this lab as well as the project is Git. Now, Git is a software or a tool that's able to track files. So essentially what happens is you will make a project inside of your code editor in PyCharm. So let's do that. So if I actually open up PyCharm, and I already made a project for this, but I can make a new one. So let's do this. It's a new project, and I'm just going to name it, let's say software engineering, or maybe I can even just say lab 9 because that's what we're doing right now. So it says create a Git repository. You could, but I think I'll just show you a more clear way of doing this. Now, there's multiple ways of getting started with this, but right now I'm just going to start a normal project. I'm going to create a welcome script just so that we've got some code there that we can demonstrate with. So let me open this new project up. All right. So we have right now we have one file, and this file. I wonder if I can move this out of the way. There we go. So we've got one file right now called main.py. We've got a folder, lab 9, which is our project. However, what if we want to put this online on a tool such as GitHub, or in our in the way that we're going to think about it is like Google Docs? Well, first thing we have to do is we're going to make an account. So GitHub is this site here. I've already made an account. I have, quite a few things here, but essentially the way that it works is you have a profile, and this profile has things called repositories. Repositories are, your different projects. It's like a folder that contains all of the files, programming files for a specific project. So, for example, in some of my other classes, I made a project, and within this repository, every single file that's related to this project is going to be located in here, and you can click on them and actually see code. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to make a repository that's going to be for this specific lab. But the main really good part about this is that you can actually share these with some specific people. So you can actually add collaborators to your repository. They can see changes that you made, and you can see changes that they make. Now, it's not going to be real time like Google Documents, but we'll see how to manage this. So again, the main thing that we were talking about was history, right? And you can actually see different changes that you make. You can see the history of things that you add to it, which is really good. In this case, I only added things one time, but what if I had made a lot of changes over days? Well, I would probably want to, you know I would have to manually do it. You have to manually save every time that you make a change. However, you should probably do it more often than not so you can actually see all those changes. So it's not automatically done for you, so that is one thing to consider. But let's go through the process of making a repository. So once you've got an account, you know, you'll have this profile page. I mean, you can go and click on your profile picture, and there's a few things I would suggest just clicking your repositories, and you can click new. So just click new, and this will prompt you to make a new repository. So you're going to make it, whatever you want. The name is just the name of the project. So I'll say Lab 9 Software Engineering. And that's going to be the name of my repository. So everything related to Lab 9 software engineering is going to be located inside here. Now you can make a description. You don't need to. You can choose whether it's public or private. So I would suggest just making it private. If it's public, anyone could go on your account and click on it. It's like a public Google document. So you might want to keep it private. If you want to showcase it to other people, you can make it public. But for assignments, I would definitely suggest keeping it private and just sharing it with people, because technically, if people are able to access your code for a project or an assignment, it could be considered a breach of the honor code, I believe. So I just wouldn't risk it. Maybe even after the class is over. I don't know. Technically, I don't think we're supposed to publish code that we've made in a class, but just keep that in mind. As long as it's private, as it says, you can choose and see who commits to this repository. You don't need to worry about any of this. Don't worry about any of this. I'm just going to make a private repository with this name. So I'm going to click create repository. And yeah, so now there's all of this stuff that's, you know, pretty pretty confusing. However, there are a few, tips that I can give you here. So it says here, you can create a new repository on the command line. So, you could do this, but one way that I think might be easier for you um, would be this, and I'll show you the way that I like to do this, because this can kind of get confusing because you don't really know what is this doing. There's all these commands, and I feel like if you search it up, like I mean, if you just search up git commands, you could probably find, or maybe even on the GitHub page, setup and config. There's all of this stuff here that will tell you exactly how it works. So, git is the name of the program, add is a function of git that you can do, and then it does something. And, whatever, it is pretty long, so it's hard to understand. So you could technically just copy what you've got here, or you can do something else. So maybe we'll try both. We'll see if it works, but I will say that it can be a bit tricky in your first time. So what we want to do here is we don't have access to this repository on our computer yet. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to set up. How are we going to set up our repository such that, on our computer, if we want to save a file, for example, I want to save this main Python file, whatever, so it doesn't matter. I want to save this into this folder of sorts. Well, we have to set up the repository in our computer. So we're going to have to basically make a copy of the repository. We're going to have to bring it into our computer. And then, when we make changes, we will, add stuff to our repository in our computer, and then we'll do something called committing. So we'll commit, and this is basically making a change. We're saving something. So I'm going to add this folder or this file. I'm going to save, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make, I saved my local repository and I'm going to send it, or what we call push. And you'll see some of these commands here that reflect that terminology. So we'll try this out. So let's see. I guess here's one way of doing it. So it says, so all of these things on the command line, we need to have a terminal open. So let's open up a terminal. So you can do this in PowerShell. The main thing is make sure that you are inside of this folder. And you can actually do this without using the Python or the PyCharm terminal if you don't want to. You can use Windows PowerShell. The main thing is when you do commands in a command prompt, you need to make sure that you are in the right folder. So as you can see here, it shows you that I'm in users, Newman, desktop, COP3502, lab 9, and that looks right. However, here, I'm just in users Newman folder. And if I want to do something on this file or this folder, I would need to be inside of this folder. So I need to move there. I need to change to the directory. And I don't know if you guys got any practice doing that on the last lab, but the way that you do that is, well, I'm gonna find this directory by moving to it. So I'm already at Newman, so I'm gonna go to desktop, and I can click tab to go there. And then I'm gonna go to COP 3502, and I can even just add the last part. So I'm going to do lab9, enter, and I'm there. And if I clear this, any command that I do here will, yeah, it'll basically be operating in this file or this folder. So an easy way to start this up is to do something called cloning. So this is an empty repository so far, and there's nothing in it yet. So an easy way to start might be to just clone it. And cloning, kind of self-evident, you're taking what you've already got, which is nothing so far. It's basically just an empty folder, and then you're going to clone it or copy it into the lab9 folder or wherever you are. So the way that you do this is by typing git clone, and then you can take the link here, the HTTPS link. I'll just click copy, and I'm going to paste it in here. And this should copy a folder named Lab9 Software Engineering into my Lab9 folder. So I'm going to try this. So it says cloning into Lab9 Software Engineering. It says warning, you may have cloned an empty repository, or you appear to. Yes, that's what I want to do. So let me see. If I do ls, I want to show all the files or folders. Well, you can see I've got a directory D, and it's the right name. And you can also see it popped up here. So now I actually have access to this thing locally. And if I make changes to this folder here, this empty folder, it will change my repository, but it won't change it here. And we need to do some extra steps. So what I'm going to do is I could just make a new file inside of this repository. But what I'm going to do is instead is I'm going to simply move this file that I've already got. So I want to add this to my repository and refactor, whatever. I'm just going to move it in there. I'm not going to, just going to ignore that. So now my Python file is in there. But you can see it's red, and the red means that it hasn't been saved, in quote, saved. So let's see, maybe I can open this up and see if it's a bit easier. I don't know if I can open up this folder. Open in. That doesn't matter. But the main thing to know is that the repository is located in this folder because it kind of is a folder, right? However, the red means that we need to do something else. We need to save it. We've got this file. We've done something. We can add whatever. My name is, or I mean, even this, I could literally just write hello world and we'll see if it actually pops up. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a command to show like where are we right now. And again, you can do these commands in this terminal or this terminal. I'm just doing it here to show that it doesn't matter. It's on the computer somewhere. What I'm going to do is I'm going to type in git status. Oh wait, actually, I'm sorry. What I need to do is, again, since I made the repository in there, it's in this folder. I actually need to move into the repository. So I'm going to move into it. Right? Let's get rid of that. And now I'm going to do git status. So this should work because this is a repository. So any command, involving git will probably work. So it says on branch main, this stuff doesn't really matter. It says no commits yet. Essentially, it just means you're on the main branch. Branches doesn't matter right now. But the commits part, it means you haven't saved any of your changes yet. It says untracked files, use git add file to include what will be committed. So this red file, main.py, the one that I added, is red because I haven't saved it. So of course the word is commit, but we're gonna just use the terminology that they give us. So what I'll do to actually save this is I will do a command called, let me just bring this back up so you can see. So I'm going to do git commit -m. And so the -m means a message. So I'm going to put a message that kind of explains what I have done. So I've added a new file. So I'm going to write added a new file, and I'll put quotes around it. And let's see what happens when I click this. Well, it doesn't work because I didn't follow the instructions. I have to git add it first, right? So let's do that. So we're going to add this because we need to include, it'll only commit whatever we, add to the pile of things we want to save, right? So we need to do git add main.py. And now if we check git status again, well, you can see it says changes to be committed, new file main.py. So great. Now we can do the commit thing. So let's do git commit -m, added a new file. And it says, main, commit, whatever. This stuff is really just to identify for the computer, what version that you've saved. I mean, again, it's kind of like looking back in time. It's just the identifier for the snapshot where you are now. It says added new file. That's what I wrote. So one file change in 18 insertions. The insertions are all the lines of code, and you can see there's 18 lines in my file. And it says create mode, whatever. This doesn't matter. Now, the last step is while it is committed now, it's been saved in our local file, in our local repository. But if I reload this, nothing has changed in our GitHub repository. So we need to do something called pushing it. So we need to push it to the internet. We need to push our changes to the internet. And the way that you do this is now that everything has been saved, I can just type in git push, and it says doing all this, it says it's going to push it to this link, which is, again, the link that I took from here. And yeah, so it says total, whatever. Let's check if it actually worked now. So what should have happened is this file should show up somewhere in my repository. So let's try, reload, and you can see here, well, main.py. And if I click on it, and you can see my message, added a new file. So main.py, you can see everything I wrote, and I wrote hello world, and it's there. So this is great, because you can save things, but you have to remember every step. You have to remember to save, when you want to save. You want to make small changes. You don't want to write the whole project on your own and then, forget to save, whatever might happen. The reason why this is very important is because what if there's another person working on the code? Well, based on this code here, let's say that, oh, you've already started some work. You can create, you can take this repository, clone it onto your computer, and because it's not empty, it will actually clone this file into it. And if I can show you this some other way. So if I go somewhere else, let me make a new PowerShell. Let's see where I can go. CD desktop. I'm just gonna, I don't know, maybe I have another folder. CD COP 3502. I'm going to clone it again. And this is me acting as another person. This is what someone else would do if they wanted to get access to your thing. And the way that you'd add someone's access is by going to the settings page and adding them as a collaborator, by the way. So they will have to, I'm not going to put in my code now, but they'd have to get access by you adding them. They can clone your repository by seeing this link, wherever it is. I think I can just take the link up here, paste it in. So, this is someone else taking what has already been done. They're cloning it. And now what we'll see is if we actually look at where we are, we just cloned, this is in a new place somewhere on my desktop. If we go in there, that's not where I meant to go. CD Lab 9 software engineering. So you see main.py is in there. It's actually in our new file. And if I actually go to my desktop, COP3503, you can see there's a hidden file .git. It doesn't matter. That's part of the software that tracks your stuff. But I just put this in here. What if someone wants to make changes? And especially what if someone wants to make changes at the same time? Well, the problem is, you might make changes here on your own, not save it. Since it's not real-time saving, someone else might, go into this main.py file Again, I can go in, literally just go like this and edit it. I can change this like test, test, test. This is someone else changing your code. And of course, I can also, save it. I can do, let's see, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna add it, added new message. This is second person. I'm gonna do git push, and we should probably see, this new thing happen. Look, and this is me doing it on a different terminal. But what if I had made changes as well, but I did not see what someone else had put, right? If someone's working at the same time, well, there's going to be an issue because you're going to be trying to push to, the same file, but you've made different changes. So the files actually look different now. So when you start working, what you want to do is you want to do a command called git pull. So there's git pull, P-U-L-L. And what this will do is it will pull any changes that you've made from, or that someone else may have made on this file, pull it into this local repository. So I don't think that I'm in the right folder, so let me go there. So CD Lab 9, Software Engineering. I'm going to do git pull, and hopefully I should see whatever, I can't remember what I wrote there, but we should see that change. So something will happen here, hopefully. It says that one file was changed. Maybe, yeah. Here you go. Test, test, test. That came from me editing it inside of a notepad. That could be someone else editing it. Now, this is really good because now you have a way of starting before you start working. You git pull, make sure that everything is up to date, and if it says already up to date, you're good. But if it's not, you'll get all the changes that someone else may have done while you were away because it doesn't automatically do it for you. And there is a problem sometimes if people try and change things at the same time, push them, but no, you guys haven't taken it, you haven't pulled in those changes. So we can actually try this. So I'm going to say I am adding one line, and then I'm going to do it in this repository. I'm also going to do, this is the second person. I, uh, I don't want this line. So I'm going to try and, you know, push two different versions of the same file, and it won't let you. And this is a good thing because we want to see if there's an issue, well, we want to see what's wrong. If we see what's wrong, we can make changes to that. So let's try that. So I'm going to do git add main.py, to just get it ready. I'm going to save it, -m, added line 20. I'm going to git push. So we're going to send it to our virtual folder. So let's see. Hopefully we'll see that. If I reload, yeah, so added line 20, it is there. And it shows you exactly what I did. So I added line 20 here. And I am going to send, or I'm going to try and send this file as a second person. But you notice now it will try and write something new. Line 20, it'll try and write something else that isn't what's already there. So let's see what happens. So let's do git add main.py without pulling anything. Git status. So we're ready. So main.py git commit -m change line 20. So we're gonna instead of saying add line 20, we're gonna say change line 20. But let's say that I didn't know that the other person made some changes. So let's try it. So it lets me make this change. And the reason why it lets me make this change is because this repository is literally just a folder, right? It's just a folder on your computer. The main problem is when you want to now send it to your online folder, the online version of the folder. Well, let's try. Git push. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, so let's see. Git push. All right. It says Rejected says failed to push something to this repository. It says hints, updates were rejected because the remote meaning the remote folder, contains work that you do not have locally. This is usually caused by another repository pushing to the same reference. So here's the thing. Now you come into an issue. You've made changes, but it won't let you push because, right, someone's made changes. And I mean, we can try and see if this works. So if you want to integrate the changes, use git pull before pushing again. So let's try that. So let's do git pull. Okay. So it says, pulled. It says auto merging in main.py conflict, merge conflict in main.py. So it says automatic merge failed, fix conflicts, and then commit the result. So it can detect that we're trying to now, it told us to pull everything from the online repository. But the problem is, well, there's something else there. And what will happen is when you try and pull, it'll show you this, weird looking code. It'll say head, meaning what you are trying to put, and then it'll, show you down here exactly what's trying to overwrite your thing, what is already there. So this thing here is already online, and it's telling you that this is conflicting. They don't match. So you either need to fix it, overwrite it, change it, whatever. You need to do something to it. So I can't do this until you know, let's say I want to get rid of this. I really want my line that I wrote here. So I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to fix this merge by deleting all of this stuff. So I'm going to force my line 20 to be there. And if this, you don't necessarily have to do this. Like you could just say, oh, I didn't realize that someone had made a change. I'm going to delete this. I'm going to delete this part. I'm going to delete this part and put it back where it's supposed to be. So that's one way of fixing these things, but these need to be fixed manually. So I'm going to say that I actually do want to make this change. I don't care about what the other person's done. So I'm going to make this change. I'm going to save it, and then let's try and push it again. So git status. So it says modified. So let's do git add main.py, git commit -m fixed merge conflicts. So I'm going to commit that, and then I'm going to push it, and hopefully this will work now. Git push. Great. Okay, no errors. Let's see. Did it actually change my line 22? I don't want this line. Well, let's look. Let's see. Fixed merge conflicts, main.py. I don't want this line. So as you can see now, things have been fixed. You're now able to work, but you need to resolve these conflicts before you start. The best way to get, usually you guys will not be working at the exact same time. So the best thing to do is to just get pull at the very beginning, make sure that you have every update on this remote repository before you start working. Because if you make a lot of code and someone else does the exact same thing, you'll be stuck because you'll have to fix a lot of conflicts. And then you guys worked on the same thing. That's why it's always good to make these messages. Exactly what did you do? Because then they know, what you've already done. They can see that. And you can also click on this history, and you can see every single time someone pushed. And I know that I am, it is from my account because my GitHub is configured on my account. But if someone was to do it, if someone else was to push things, it would be the exact same thing. It would just show that it would be their username, right? So that's the main thing to consider. And when you do this lab here, when you do lab 9, I don't know why I got logged out. When you do lab 9, you're going to want to do the same thing. You're going to want to make a repository, and you can do it in the same way that I did by just cloning an empty repository. I find it to be a relatively easy way of doing it, even though, there are better ways of doing this. However, for our purposes, it'll probably suffice. So you're going to want to create a repository similar to what I did. You're going to, write some code. So you'd write the code in your main file. So what does it tell me to do? It just says you will write an encode function, def encode password. I'm not actually going to write it. I'm just going to say pass. It says the partner is going to implement the decode function. So there's going to be a decode function. Let's say that you make your implementation, but you leave this like as pass, right? So let's say my implementation, and then you just leave this, say to be done by partner. Well, you can now push these changes to your GitHub. So, as we've done a couple times, the process is once you've created the folder, the repository on your computer, git add main.py, git commit -m. So writing why I'm saving. So um, created encode function. Uh, let's say I declared decode function, but did not finish or something. It usually shouldn't be this long, but I'll just be more descriptive. I'm gonna say git push. Oh yeah, I actually made some changes, so I can't do that. Let's pull. We're gonna have to fix our conflicts. Let's see what it says. Well, my online repository looks very different, so I'm gonna get rid of all this stuff. I don't need it anymore. So let's just get rid of this. I really want this to just be everything on my file. All right. Now let's do the same thing. Main.py, git commit -m, added functions. Not even going to write it out again. And then git push. So let's see if that actually worked. So added functions. My functions are here. And that's great. So, your implementation's done. Now, what you as the partner will do, pretending that this is the partner on a different computer. Again, this is a different folder. As you can see here, I've been working on that PyCharm file in this folder here, but I have the exact same folder somewhere else. I've got it here, so I'm going to modify it here. As a second person, what you're going to do is you're going to do git pull. Make sure that everything is up to date. So git pull, everything's been changed. You can see here. Let's see if it actually got changed. Actually, if I can edit it. Yeah, so it says to be done by partner. So we have received the changes. Now we're going to say, you are the partner. I'm going to say partner implementation. You'll fill out the code, whatever. You'll save it, and you as the partner will go through the same process. Git add main.py to the same file name. Git commit -m finished decode function. Now I'll push it. And let's see, are we going to get the partner's work done? Let's see. It's right there. So that's exactly how you're going to want to do it. Of course, you will need to do just a little bit of code, but that's the exact steps that you're going to want to follow. It's not too complex, but the main thing that's can be really confusing is how to actually start a Git repository. There are some tools on PyCharm actually, I think, that have like these, commit, pull, all this stuff, commit, push. But I would really suggest try and just do it on the command line because I find that it's easier to understand. And if you know how to do it on the command line, you can actually do it anywhere and not rely on PyCharm to do it, especially because you'll probably be using GitHub for other projects in the future, other classes. And if you know how to use GitHub, Git on the command line and push things to GitHub, which is the remote or online version of your repository, then you'll have a much better time because as you can see here, I'm just doing it in a random terminal shell that is just accessing some folder on my desktop here. And I'm doing all of this without even looking at the folder. I mean, I am editing it through Notepad, or you can use any editor. I mean, you could open it in VS Code, whatever you want. But the main thing is I'm doing everything in the terminal, and you don't need to rely on just pressing these commit push buttons. Because in reality, what those buttons are doing are these exact commands that you are writing here. So that's the main thing. Um, you know, there's some extra stuff here that's pretty simple, like, oh, make a menu if they press one. If the input's one, then run this function. But the whole point that we really want you to get into is like how to work together, how to fix a merge conflict. There's other, features that you can do with GitHub and Git, such as branches. Uh, but I don't think that it will be that important for you yet. But I would suggest, you search up a video of like what a branch is, because essentially the way that this works is that you have a main version of the repository, the folder, and you can have branches. So there's a main branch, and if you change things on the main branch, it changes for everyone. But what if you want to do something else? Like, let's say you want to make some big changes. I want to work on a different file, you know, and I don't want to have to like start saving and fixing merge conflicts. Well, you can make a new branch. So you can actually add new branches. And it's kind of like branches of a tree, and that's where the name comes from. You kind of branch off, do something else, still related to this main code, and you save it there. You save it on a different branch. It's like literally another version of your repository. It'll be different than the main one. And then eventually, if you want to integrate things together, you can combine all these branches, start working to merge them, but you have four different places or however many people you're working with, you have different places to store someone's individual work, and you don't really have to worry about those merge issues. And you also, especially if you're making big changes to a project, you can make those changes, have everyone look at them and say, will this break the project? And especially if you're running, this, let's say that you have a big project here and someone changes something in a file and it makes the entire thing break. Well, the better idea is to just say, let's make a new branch, let's test those things out over there. And then if it works, well, then let's move it into the main branch. And I'm not going to show you exactly how to do that. You can search up a video how to do that. But that is also, a really good tool to make sure that you protect your code. You want to make sure that you aren't, you know, taking all the code here, you know, git pulling, having an entirely new file. Like, let's say I have an entirely new file that's like print hello world, or I don't know, let's say that we just want to make changes here. This file that I've made here is not related to any of these repositories. But like if I make changes here, you don't want to just be, Control C, Control V. You don't want to be overwriting everything. You want to be actually making those changes, pushing them, pulling them back, pushing them, because then it can actually show you that timeline of how things have changed. Because if you delete everything like this and then just paste your code that you have written somewhere, you lose all of that because now it thinks that all of this stuff came at the same time. So I see that quite often. I saw that especially when I was taking this class, people would do that. And it kind of, while it doesn't defeat the whole purpose because it does, still allow you to work collaboratively, you start to lose the ability to work together because you're just deleting someone else's code. But you really want to try and work together to fix issues. So that should be everything that you need for this lab. The functions themselves are relatively simple. When you submit your lab, you're going to make a PDF document, and it'll just say the name of two people. So again, if you haven't chosen two people to work with, you can just send a message on EdStream, try and get someone to work with you because you kind of both need to do it. Each one of you is going to need to create this encode function. Each one of you is going to need to create a decode function for someone else. Or I don't know. Yeah, I think that you're going to need to make both individually. But just read the instructions here. And when you submit, you're just going to put both of your names. Both of you are going to submit, but both of your names, you're going to put those links. So I think for this, actually, yeah, for this assignment, it says public repository links. So yeah, you're going to want to, I guess, make it public. You can do that. Since I made mine private and I want to change that now, I can go to collaborators. Let's see. I don't know if I want to do that. Just Let's see if I can pull this up really quickly. I didn't do that. Let's see. Yeah, so you can change it on the settings. I don't really want to put out my code on the recording, but you can change it from private to public. Um, but I guess since this lab is, wanting a public repository, make sure that it's public. Um, but I will say for the final project, keep it private if you can because you don't want other people to see your code. So that's the main thing that you want to be thinking about. So for the sharing, I can change this to a public repository by, clicking on collaborators, manage, and then it'll take you down here where it says, change visibility. I'm not going to change it to public, but I guess you should. Um, as for adding people, you can add people by doing this. You just click add people. And if I wanted to type in someone's name, well, I can click on them and just add them and they will get access to it. And when you want to clone the repository, well, you can just use the link up here. Does that make sense? Hopefully that should be good. The main thing is that you are able to get access to each other's repositories. So you're both going to need to make one.